So, dude,
Oh,
welcome back.
yeah,
How are things?
they've been good. When was the last time we did this?
I should have wrote it down. I was looking at it today. You guys hadn't fully announced the album for
Oh
Sinner the
wow.
Saint at that point. So,
Oh wow,
at least 2024, maybe late 2023.
that was ages ago. Yeah, no, I'm,
Yeah,
I'm a different person at this point in time. But, wow. Yeah, how you been?
I've been good, man. I've just been steadily, still grinding through all this and then just living. I'm trying to remember if I had bought my house at that point or not.
I
When we talked the last time.
I feel like something like about the setup is a little different than maybe my brain is just like imprinting like images just that weren't there originally, but like something's different. Maybe you weren't there. I don't know. I
Okay,
don't remember.
yeah, again, it's been a hot minute since
Oh yeah.
we last sat down, but I'm stoked to kind of have you back on and kind of and also that you're still doing stuff. Obviously, we'll
Yeah,
probably talk about End of Sinner and Saint a little bit for people
for
that
sure.
are and all that fun stuff. But
For sure.
any questions from your end before we get started?
No, I have my alcoholic drink of choice, so I'm all set.
Hell yeah. Well, my infamous question before we get started is obviously you kind of already mentioned it, but uh, you have an unopened beverage to participate in the opening crack with.
So I didn't have any beer, but I have this bottle of eggnog,
Oh, God.
alcoholic eggnog, and that we got for the holidays, me and my fiance. And I'm gonna just take a shot of that, and we're just gonna go with that.
All right. Sounds great. Hopefully it's still good and not
Oh,
expired.
it's fine. I'm sure it's fine.
All right. Well, I'll count us down. I'll crack my beer. You take your shot, and then I'll do the little intro, bring you in, and we'll just have a good time.
Cool. Sounds good to me.
Sweet. In three, two, one. Welcome to the Beers with Bands podcast with your host, Michael Torres. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Beers with Bands. One thing that I really love with this show is, I've been around for so long, I get to reconnect with people, and I'm really stoked on this episode. I get to welcome back Brandt to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back. It's like we were talking beforehand. It's been a really long time since I've done this, so I'm a little nervous actually. I'm a little nervous.
Well, nothing to be nervous about as usual. No hard hitting questions, just fun, good old times. Obviously, I have some beers on my end. You have some hard eggnog, which is wild
No,
considering we're recording the first week in March, and it's not
don't
like
don't
a
think about
Christmas
it.
epised.
Don't think about it at all. Don't think about it. It's still good.
But yeah, like you mentioned, you've been on the show before. I looked it up and I should have wrote it down. I think it was like episode like 184 or somewhere in there.
Okay.
And I'm now at like I think it's been like almost 100 episodes since then, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Wow.
Um,
Because you've been
but
you've been churning these out for a while.
yeah, I was actually thinking about this the other day. I think I'm approaching the anniversary of it, but it's sometime in March in 2021. I have been consistent on every Friday since then,
Dang,
which
that's
is
impressive.
it's insane. Some days I'm like, what am I doing? Because like we went on vacation out of the country, and I made sure that I still had Wi-Fi for like Friday mornings to like make my post, and then I would basically just like ghost the rest of the week. So dedication, which is
Consistency, yeah.
I also it's one of those curses where like I don't think I could let myself stop if I miss a week that I'm just like okay I'm done like this is my mentality so like I just have to keep it going.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so been about 100 episodes. Last time you were on was with the Sinner and the Saint, uh, which R.I.P. I know
Yep.
you guys
Rest
have
in peace.
kind of been done. I think about almost this time last year is when I think the post went up.
Yeah, it was somewhere around there. We planned a show. I forget exactly when the show was. You think I'd be better at dates. But yeah, it was probably around this time when we were like, the discussion happened and we were like, okay, let's, maybe take a step back and then we had our final show and yeah, just about a year ago.
Yeah. Which again, that band, obviously you guys together were killer. The album that you guys ended up putting out was
Thanks so much.
phenomenal, and everything you guys did. So it's always a bummer when we lose another project in the scene, but hopefully they're all doing well,
Oh yeah.
and everything. And obviously you're back this time to kind of talk about your new project, Designated Hitter, which you've been working on for a little while. That we'll get into all this fun stuff, but yeah, welcome back to the
Yeah.
show.
Again, good to be back. Hell yeah.
But yeah, like I mentioned, you're now doing your solo side project as a designated hitter, which according to the Instagram, so which we'll might have to figure this one out a little bit. It's a bedroom emo punk project based out of Green Bay.
Yeah, I didn't know what to call it because this whole idea started before the Sinner and the Saint called it quits.
Mm,
I originally had an idea. I just wanted to do some music on the side, just as something, maybe try some experimental stuff, whatever. And I didn't know what genre to call it. And it's kind of the same with when I was in the Sinner and the Saint. It was like there's like pop, there was emo. We occasionally did some like weird, like there was some electronic stuff incorporated. And I didn't want to really tie myself down to a particular genre per se. And I think that kind of shows up on like the first EP compared to the second EP that I've done and stuff like that. So
hey, I don't know. I love the term bedroom emo. Uh, like I don't know what it is, but like I feel like it fits perfectly with what you're kind of doing.
it that stemmed from garage rock. Like I had the
Mm,
idea of garage rock, but like you're doing it all in your bedroom. Like I'm literally, this is where I record, like this room here. This is where I record everything. I got my guitars surrounding me and I just sit at my computer and I just go to town. So it's very much like it's very DIY, just like in this space of mine. So that's kind of why I went with that route, just calling it
yeah.
bedroom emo. So
I think that's why I liked it was because it like takes it to that next level of just like kind of do it yourself and
mm,
DIY. Um, Yesterday we had a work meeting and my manager had us like introduce ourselves because there was a few new people and like
mm.
do the typical like icebreaker stuff. And we talked about like hobbies and I said like, oh, I like to go to like punk and like DIY shows. So I had to explain to about a room full of 40 people as to what a
Oh no.
DIY show is. Because one, they didn't understand the acronym DIY. And then I had to like take it a whole step further. So like that was real not fun. And made me feel it was weird because I felt super young, but also like super old. Like, when you have to explain things.
Yeah, people at work ask me all the time. They're like, "What genre are you?" And I'm like, Man, it's like I don't know if you know what DIY is, but like the E, and and they're just like, "Oh, like you do it all yourself, but like what genre?" And I'm like, it's kind of hard to encapsulate everything because it just doesn't, it's such an umbrella term, when it comes to
Yeah.
things.
Which is kind of crazy because I did take a mental step back and I was like, it is kind of weird how we've incorporated like when we talk about the scene right now, it's like not just like the emo scene, it's the DIY scene, and
No.
it's like we've mended and meshed those together so much that it's just weird to have that overlap, but like they make sense at the same time.
Yeah, it's literally like anything that is music that you're literally doing yourself, like genre-wise permitted. Like who cares about the genre? Like, and I think that's what's nice about it. It's like you can get support from, especially when I was in the Sinner and the Saint, like, we were playing shows with, bands that were clearly not our genre,
Hmm.
but it was all the same kind of like vibe, the same kind of like, hey, we just put this, record out that we funded ourselves, we recorded ourselves, we did all this stuff ourselves. And you kind of have that relation between, regardless of what kind of music you're making at the end of the day. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah. You know, I great tangent already. This is
Yeah.
gonna be great. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, so you kind of started the at least initial portion of this side project prior to the Center Saint kind of ending, which kind of I feel like makes sense with a lot of people in bands because especially when you're trying to write stuff, you probably had those moments where it was like, okay, this isn't a Sinner and a Saint song. It's got to
Yeah.
be something else. It's gotta kind of gotta breathe. Um, like how obviously like we mentioned, Sinner Saint kind of departed about this time, March ish last year,
Mm.
but then you released the first EP for Designated Hitter in October. So like, at what point did you kind of start workshopping this initial EP?
So the initial EP was it was kind of around like right after we had made the announcement. Because I still had a lot of ideas from what I wanted to do in the Sinner and the Saint. There was a couple ideas that I was like, oh yeah, we could record this and do stuff. And there were talks towards the end where we were like, maybe we just put out one more EP just as like, just like a farewell kind of thing or whatever. But it didn't end up working out. So a couple of the songs on the first EP were directly because of that.
Mm,
And my brain was in like hyperdrive mode. Like I wanted to keep writing, I wanted to keep recording and stuff like that. Even after like the insane project of putting out an album for the first time, like we put out that album, and my brain was just like, okay, I kind of don't want to stop doing that.
hmm
And it ended up just kind of being like literally like while we were planning the ending show, I was already like kind of demoing stuff out. Like I said, I had some song ideas before we even had decided to call it quits. And one of those songs is actually on the newest EP, which I'm sure we'll get into. But it was just a lot of like, I just want to keep going. So and I just sat down and just started working on stuff. So
well, for one, for people listening, we're talking about "Smile Through It All," which came
yep.
out in October of 2025. But I love. I think you're the one of the first people I've talked to where you get done writing kind of like a full length, and your mind is still racing to do more stuff. I feel like some people would kind of feel like depleted almost a little bit,
Yes.
and be like, I need like 6 months to like figure something out, or just like let things come back to me.
I think what helped with that is um it was this project so far, aside from the features and some people helping. My buddy Tom mastered Smile Through It All and made that sound the way that it sounds. And but it's been mostly just me,
Mm,
just doing everything. Like there were some days I would come home from work before my fiance gets home, and I would just like jam out on guitar. I'd literally have like 40 minutes before she got home. I didn't want to annoy her with all my clanging around on guitar. And it would literally just be me like, all right, that's an idea. And if it works, it works. And that's what that ended up being. Was it was just like it was so fluid and quick. And then I think between Smile Through It All and the ideas for the second EP, it was probably like a few months before I had started working on. So there was still like some time in between, but it was just like, okay, I'm gonna just start. It was probably in December is when I started like actually like going through with like the stuff for the new one. So
I just gotta say, like, as a listener, you're probably like every listener's favorite band then, because we get done with like a one project and we're like, man, I really wish there's more. And you're probably gonna be that person that's gonna
uh,
crank stuff out.
I, I,
Are
would I
you?
would I wouldn't put that on the table. I
Okay,
wouldn't put
okay.
that. um Because yeah, it was. I get what you're saying though, because I know a lot of people like they'll hear an album from a band and then the band will play shows and stuff like that, and sometimes it feels like it it seems like forever sometimes between releases. Like
hmm
there's some bands that have it on lock where they put out a 10 out of 10 album, and then they had maybe some stuff. I don't know if it was on the cutting room floor or what. And then they finish it, and then like, all right, here guys, here's a single just out of nowhere, and it's still just as good. Um, I think with the stuff that I was working on, I just had so many ideas all at once that it was fairly easy for me to just be like, okay, I can cut this and then just, put out an EP, see what happens, and then, oh, okay, let's move on to a different idea kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, and obviously we're going to talk about the latest EP, but I do want to mention again with Smile Through It All, you have. I think one thing I really loved about that project and record when it came out is like, despite you being the only person in this band, you have a good amount of collabs on it. Obviously Cacophony Kid's been on is on it, Nish from 10 Month Summer.
Yeah.
Like you have a good amount of homies that are coming in to like kind of help like build it up even more.
Yeah.
And like I just really loved that like collaboration throughout the whole
Yeah.
thing.
I'm so thankful for them. Like the fact that I was literally on like the Sinner and the Saint Twitter, and I was on, my Twitter, and I was like following these bands, and I was like, oh, are people gonna even like bother? 10 Month Summer is amazing. The new single that they just put out, like as pretty much today, amazing. And I love everything that they're doing. Cacophony Kid, we've been talking since the Sinner and the Saint days.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah,
you
because
know,
he did a tape run I think for the Sinner and Saint,
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
he?
yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, that was part of that. And then I had a couple of my friends, my buddy Bill, from Radio for Pets. They're a good local band from Green Bay. Highly recommend them to anybody. They should be exploding by now. Um, but just having all these people, I was so thankful because I was really scared to do this by myself, to be quite frank with you. Like when the Sinner and the Saint ended, I was just like, what do I do? Like what am I going to do now? Because I don't have, having a band, you have people behind you, you have people
Hmm.
that are like supporting you. And in my brain, I was just like, can I do this alone? And that's why I was just like, all right, screw it. We'll do Smile Through It All. And then if that doesn't work out, then I'll figure something out. And I was happy with how it turned out doing it relatively by myself. Um, that I was just like, okay, maybe this is a thing that I can do. So, but having those people behind me, like, every feature on that thing, I was just like, I'm surprised that they're even giving me the time of day sometimes. Not to say that they're mean people. I'm just saying like they have things that going on, they got things that they want to do. Um, and that was like the most excited feeling was getting like emails from them or getting messages from them that's like, okay, here's my recorded parts. And I was like, okay, cool, this is great, I love this. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it makes you feel better, and I think around the time that Smile Through It All was out or about to come out, I had Cacophony Kid on the show,
mhm.
and I remember during our recording, like he talked up that EP super hard and
Oh
like
hell
working
yeah,
with you. So like
hell yeah.
I know he's been rocking with you super hard, and like I think you've been. I know it's coming out of being in a band with a few other people and like kind of having to put the spotlight directly on yourself. That's very hard, but I think you've done really well, and obviously the connections have been done perfectly to kind of help out with that EP.
Oh for sure.
And then obviously, like we mentioned, that came out in October, and then I think it was just a couple months down the line. Obviously, the first single for the overwhelming feeling that something is out there dropped, which is lead. I think the whole album's been out for EP. The second EP has been out for a week and a half, 2 weeks, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
Um,
roughly, yeah.
yeah, but it's wild. Like we were talking about, like your timeline to kind of go right into this. I know that there's a little bit of a second backstory that I want to kind of get into, but did you have any kind of hesitations because this EP's a little bit different than like the first EP?
Oh for sure, yeah. No, when I first had the idea to do this, it stems from like an idea that kind of itched my brain when, like I said, when I was in the Sinner and the Saint. Um, and I was like, well, could I just do something like it's not too. out there compared to EP1, Smile Through It All, but it's still different enough to where some people might be like, oh, this could be a different kind of thing. And I guess in my brain, I was just a little worried doing something that was a little bit more not niche, but like a little weirder
Hmm.
than the first one. Like it's not like I'm not saying that it's like out there, but it's definitely something that I hadn't ever done before. So that was the main thing that was going in my brain. I was like, are people going to even listen to this? Are people going to care? Like, um, not that I'm looking at the numbers all the time, but it's like you put out music and you're like, oh yeah, people are listening. That's cool.
Yep.
But yeah, there's definitely been a lot of nerves with putting this thing out. So
Well, one, it's a great listen to, and also I gotta say thank you for also reaching out ahead of time before
yeah,
the EP had dropped. And I've tried to kind of stay off Twitter nowadays, but I
fair.
appreciate you reaching out to include me as like someone that to check it out before it dropped. That meant a lot.
No,
To be able to be one of those people, and like it's such a solid EP to follow up, Smile Through It All.
thanks
Obviously
so
there's
much.
like an underlying story throughout it for people that might be like checking it out. Can you kind of dive into this story and like what sparked the, I guess, real idea to tell it in this format? Because I know this is I think you mentioned in an Instagram post, this is the first time you've actually done something with like a cohesive, almost through line story.
Yeah. Um, so the idea came up from a post. Somebody was talking about like elder emo, like I don't know, it was like 2022 or something like that. It was a while ago. Just I saw it on social media and people were talking about elder emo and they were, there was a lot of discourse about like what elder emo is and stuff like that. And at the time, I was a big fan of I'm a big fan of like psychological horror. I know this is a like weird place to come from, for like music, but I was a big fan of like, Silent Hill 2 is like one of my favorite
Mm.
games of all time. I like the fear of the unknown kind of stuff. I like, the creepy weird factor kind of stuff. And I joked and I was like, oh, well, I'm gonna make an eldritch emo band, as in playing off the whole elder emo thing. And I joked on that, and then partway through the Sin and the Saint, recording the album for the Sin and the Saint, I was like, I could, what if I did a concept like album or song or EP or something like that? And then, I fell out of the idea because I did Smile Through It All. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna record something. And I started recording some stuff. And then partway through recording some stuff, I was like, I dropped everything and I was like, I'm going to do this weird idea. And because I already had one song like in the doc that I had come up with like a year or two prior. And then the ideas kept coming for like at least an EP. I didn't want to go overboard because it was kind of a weird idea. Um, and then it was just like, okay, I guess I'm committing to making like, at least 6 songs. Um, and that's just what it became. So,
I love that, as bad as, some of these discourses can happen on Twitter,
no,
and also over like the dumbest things, depending on the time that you're on Twitter and what you
no.
see. I love that we got this EP out of it. That's
If
probably like
that's
that's probably like the one good thing that probably came out of that discourse.
if that's anything from it, it's just like I'll be happy with that being at least, even if people are like, oh, the EP isn't that great, but it's still something like
Right.
but but yeah, no, I'm really proud with how it turned out. And like I said, like doing a full story was something that I hadn't like I've done albums with like a very loose I like style around them. Um, but this was the first time that I was like, I'm going to commit to talking about one particular thing and having like a story around it. So
Yeah. Were there like certain challenges that you kind of found running into that? Because I know obviously like putting an album together or an EP together around like a specific theme might be obviously a little bit easier because you're not like, oh, am I tying still back into this? As
Mm.
long as the deeper meanings, uh, symbol A or whatever. But like, did you find any hard steps when you're kind of trying to put this whole story together? I guess.
It was hard for me to look at my lyrics and sometimes because I was so used to writing a certain way when I was doing, my previous stuff. And writing, I found myself trying to write differently for this specific EP because I wanted it to tell, or at least again, it's a vague story, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And it like having these lyrics about like yeah, I didn't want it to be too cheesy. In my brain, it was so hard for me to go like, what am I talking about? Like, why am I talking like, because one of the lyrics that comes up is, there's demons, um, you know, darkness. Like it sounds when I say it out loud, I'm like, oh God, that's kind of cringe. But when it's all together and it's when within the song, it feels a little bit less so. But again, I just had to keep looking back at my lyrics and go, is that too like stupid? Like is this stupid to sing about like this particular thing? There's a few songs on there that I'm like the concept is sound throughout the whole thing, but like does it is it is it dumb? Like I guess it was just second guessing myself the whole time. It was that was probably the hardest part.
Yeah, which is fair. Like, but to be honest, I feel like if a pop punk band were to write an EP about being an elder emo, that would be the cheesiest shit in the world. Because like I feel like and I also don't listen to a lot of today's pop punk.
Mhm.
So anyone that's listening, please don't come down my throat when I say this. But like I see some bands when I scroll through TikTok that are just doing like the cheesiest kind of almost like gimmicky stuff, and I feel like if they were to write this, then they would be like they would basically redo, which I know Fall Out Boy has already done it, but like what oh god, I'm gonna blank on the song. They would basically redo "We Didn't Start the Fire" with
Oh yeah.
modern pop
Oh
punk
yeah.
stuff, like
Okay.
kind of
Yeah.
like what not Blink, but what Fall Out Boy did
Yep.
in that vein of cheesiness. Like I think as long as you're nowhere near that, you're totally fine.
Yeah. I feel like I had to kind of embrace the campy cheesiness of like the topic at hand in order to get past the fact that I'm like, okay, I'm writing songs about like the most like the darker weird themes of like horror, and I was just like, uh how far could I go with this? But yeah.
was there was there a specific point when you were kind of putting this together that you were kind of like almost surprised as to how you I'm trying to think of how to word this, how you like man it came up with like a certain lyric to make it sound like less, this might not be a good question, less campy than you originally like thought it might come off or something like that.
There was a couple times through the song It Is Purple. That was probably the hardest one for me to sit back and go like, am I really talking about the sky just being purple? Like is that what it comes down to, and where it's like it's referencing like looking up at the sky, to eldritch abominations beyond our human comprehension, and just taking that and then and going, yeah, I mean, I guess, there was a lot of sitting back and kind of workshopping like different things. But overall, when I came up with like the chorus of that song, at least it flowed so well that I was at the end of it, I was just like, okay, I made it. It sounds good. It sounds almost like it's like if you were to attach some like folk music
Mm.
to, or like folk lyrics to something that was a little bit louder and a little bit more like garage rock, pop punk, emo. um that's why that was one of those times where I was able to sit back and kind of like be happy with what I had written, even if like out of context, again, if you just read it, you're just like, okay, that's just kind of, this because it's kind of weird, but yeah, I was very proud of how that song ended up turning out when after I workshopped a little bit.
Yeah. One thing I do want to point out, I know we kind of talked about demons, but some of these song titles that you kind of have that pop up, obviously, Mini Van Helsing, it's amazing.
Thank you.
Demons, Drive-ins, and Dives, again, uh, top notch. Like
No.
that one was probably like my favorite title of a song, and I think obviously still ties it into the modern day emo-ness of having these kind of wacky song titles. Was there any other ideas that you kind of had that you ended up kind of just maybe this one won't work?
Uh, I went through so many different versions of the Helsing one because there's a lot of things that have Van in them. And I at one point I was like Eddie Van Helsing,
Mm,
but then I was like, oh well, it's maybe that one's not that doesn't work as much. And I was thinking about like I forget whose Twitter I was like looking at. There was a band, their van broke down, and I was like, minivan, yeah, minivan Helsing works. That sounds good. And I asked my fiance, I literally like pulled her aside. I was like, does this sound good? Which one sounds better? Um, and there was a couple other ones that I wish I could remember. I had them written down. But I don't know if I can find them in time. But there was a couple other ones that involved uh demons and stuff like that. But those were the ones that I was happiest with after I did charactership of Theseus. That was the one where I combined the two, and I was like, okay, I like how this is turning out. Just coming up with a few more was, and then obviously the last song I was like, all right, I'm gonna make something that's not very very fancy or very silly. But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun naming those ones. So
and I gotta say, Submarine Man. While it might not be the fanciest title, that is a great song. I feel like to end on with that EP. Like I was listening to it on the way home from work, and it just I don't know, something about it just hit just right. And then obviously, what the way I had it set up today was I was doing a repeat, so then it went right into. I actually didn't go right back into character ship. It went right into sports.
okay.
So I was kind of doing that loop, but yeah, it was. I think it's a solid song to kind of end off that EP.
It's it's funny because that's the song that I wrote when I was in the Sinner and the Saint, and that was the song that kind of came that was the first idea that I come up with for the whole idea of this EP, like the whole weird idea. And I thought it sounded so much not like what I was doing in the Sinner and the Saint, that was the one that I was like, okay, that I'll do a new project. I'll just do this on the side. So there's like really early recordings of me just like quietly strumming in here on my acoustic guitar, just coming up with the idea. Um, and I felt it was a good closer because one, it was kind of a start of this whole thing.
Hmm.
So it had a little bit more of an emotional impact, but also it sets up the whole plot of everything else. And I thought putting it at the end would be just a little weird. Um, and the fact that it builds and it has places that it goes. Um, and it felt so good. I remember tweeting out even like when I had written the full version of the song or when I recorded the full version of the song. I remember I was like, guys, I think I just came up with like the perfect closer to a thing. And that's when that song was finished. I was like, okay, perfect. Sticking with that, it's gonna be great. And I'm glad people like it. I was a little worried because it kind of ventures back a little bit from what's on the rest of the EP, but then it eventually pulls it back to the sound of how everything else kind of sounded. So
Yeah, no, it's super solid. It's wild that that was the also the catalyst for Designated Hitter, and to see it kind of come to fruition. Um, but yeah, it's I mean the whole EP in general is super sick. I'm really stoked on it. Obviously, like you mentioned a little bit ago, you were working on something else and put that on the complete back burner to work on this, which is wild because I feel like I don't know. Depending on the person, I feel like you could go one of two ways. One would be like, no, I got to finish what I'm working on first, and then try and figure this out. But to have that itch to be like, no, this project needs to get out and be out there first,
Mm.
is pretty great.
I'm kicking myself for it though.
Oh no.
Because I recorded like I'm really happy with how the EP sounded. The overwhelming feeling. I'm really happy with how it sounded, but I'm too happy with how it sounds in comparison to the thing that I was working on.
Ooh.
So now I'm gonna go back and basically utilize what I had done prior as, a few demos, and I'm going to just re-record that whole thing. And I'm upset at myself, but also like I'm glad I another reason behind this EP was just to be like, okay, can I do the mixing and mastering myself? Because I hadn't really done that. I didn't do that for the first EP. So I was like, can I do that? And I practiced and I was like asking questions to a couple people that were helping me out. And but then I pulled it all together and I'm like, wow, this sounds like pretty legit. It sounds like, maybe I didn't do it. And then I go back to the other stuff and I'm like, oh no, oh everything's wrong. Like I need to I need to go back in and record some more things. Like what's wrong with me? Like that's how that was. And but I think stepping back, doing something different, and then now I'm going to be going back to that other thing has really helped me go, I can make this sound even better next time.
Hmm.
I can make the next thing sound better. I can get better. Maybe I'll plateau at some point, but like I feel like I've gotten better at the thing that I've been trying to do. So it feels way more exciting to start working on the other stuff that I was working on. So
That's what I always love to hear with people that like obviously you kind of one up yourself with every new release, and obviously you've gained like this new skill. So now I'm really stoked to, obviously I'm sure that the whatever you were working on was going to sound phenomenal anyways, but I'm really stoked to kind of see what it is going to be like now. How far were you into that process for that other recordings before you were like, hey, I need to put this on pause and then work on the overwhelming feeling?
it was to the point of where I was sending it to some people. it
Mm.
was it was to the point of where there was a couple people that I had sent it to that I was like, look at the thing that I did. I'm super proud of it. And like maybe not in the full like mastering and mixing stage, but like everything was together. Everything was like there was cohesion, there was like and I'm like again, I go back to it and I'm like, oh man. Oh man, what was I thinking? This could sound so much better. Like, because I sent it to a couple bands that I trust with stuff that have helped me out. I sent it the thing over to 10 Month Summer uh, and Kyle from Mway, and they were very kind and they gave me a couple pointers like to fix some things up. And now I'm just like. I gotta get back in there. I gotta redo all that stuff, and then I'll probably send it over to them again and just be like, "Here, it's better now." So
It'll be. I think they'll probably get a kick out of like the drasticness, probably, in changes of just being like, hey, I only told him to kind of tweak this one thing, and
yeah,
like it just sounds completely different.
yeah, yeah. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how that
Okay.
goes.
Uh, when can we possibly expect to see that project hit the light of day?
Um, I don't want to make any strict promises. Um, but the original plan was I was gonna put out the the overwhelming feeling EP. I was gonna put that out earlier than what I did.
Hmm.
And I was gonna end up doing this other thing and finishing it up in the fall. And I don't know if that's gonna work out that way because now I have to go back in and tweak some stuff and re-record some stuff and all that. But um, you'll definitely at least hear some new music from me this year. Some more after the EP. And I plan on also doing some behind the scenes releases for this most recent EP because I felt like it would be fun to just be like, hey, here's some of the process that I did. So
Uh, well, I obviously do whatever schedule works best for you.
yeah,
We'll all be ready. But since you kind of mentioned it, I know you had it was kind of my notes of this extra stuff that you're kind of bonus stuff that we're going to get for the overwhelming feeling. So I think doing a behind the scenes is really cool because like I don't feel like you see that too often.
mm,
Like I really love it when bands would kind of like put together like a little like studio vlog of like what's going on
yeah.
in that process and stuff. So stoked when that kind of gets released because that's always fun stuff to kind of dig through and just kind of get another sense of like feeling like you're there during the process.
It's nice to see the progression. Like there's some bands that like I hear their music and I'm like, man, I wish I would have known like because sometimes they'll release demos. Like bands will release demos all the time and but sometimes I'm just like, oh man, like what was this song like halfway through coming up with
Hmm.
it? Like you hear like somebody strumming on their guitar and singing like rough lyrics to a thing, but like halfway through like where did that song go? And like where did it end up in comparison? Like that stuff has always been kind of fascinating to me. There's a couple um a couple of bands that have done that in the past that I'm just like, "Oh, that's cool. All right, cool. Yeah."
Yeah, because like that's one thing I love too is like that I'll bring up this question every so often of when a band goes to release like an album or something I'll always kind of be like what's like with the one song that drastically changed from like the initial idea
Oh.
recording and like demo to like the full fledged version and just like hearing like a version of a song that could have been
Mm.
uh and I'm just like, man, I wish there was some like I wish you guys would just release like maybe like a B side or like just a
Yeah.
demos of just like letting us compare the two would be
Mm.
wild.
That was kind of the idea behind this, and I'm not gonna I'm just putting it up on Bandcamp. I didn't want to put it on like streaming because it's not like old Beatles archival, stuff that they put albums after albums on like, everything. It's more or less just like, some of my fuck ups, some of the stuff that like, some of the notes that I had for myself. And there is like an earlier version of something on there that maybe people will like and wish was the actual song, but hopefully not. Um, but yeah, I'm really excited to just have some more stuff out. So
Hell yeah. Uh, Obviously, people are finding these EPs. They're falling in love with the stuff that you put out. I know one kind of big hurdle with being a solo person, kind of doing everything yourself, is you don't have always a full band to kind of fill in and do live shows. Are there any plans to do at least like acoustic version shows for some of this stuff that's been released?
yeah, I'm hoping to at least get some solo shows here in Wisconsin, just as like local things, whatever I can get. The show schedule has been kind of slow in this winter spring hybrid that we currently have. Um, but I really want to play some of the songs, and I've even like I've gotten messages from my friend Billy saying, "Hey, if you want to do something and you want me to sing on that one song that I sing on, let's go." So hopefully this summer I'll be getting out, maybe even earlier than that is the plan, if at all possible. So
Hell yeah. One show I think I saw the Sinner and the Saint get on, and I don't think we've ever connected on it. Because I think my someone I know that's also been on the show a long time ago has put them on. I think they were like barn shows somewhere in like kind of like that Greenberry, North Michigan area. Not Michigan, sorry,
yeah,
Wisconsin area.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
wrong
yeah.
state.
I get what you mean. I get what
Yeah,
you mean.
yeah, yeah. And I can't. I'm blanking on his actual name. I know his stage name or former stage name. But like, how was it doing? Kind of like those some of those barn shows that they were putting together.
Those were a blast. Like it's so weird because I remember specific like that one show that we played in the barn is it like kind of stuck in my brain, just like everything that I remember about it, because it was hot. It was, it was like there was risk of like the rain happening and stuff like that. Um, and being in there, like there's multiple genres, like there's like this heavier pop punk stuff. There's, some people are playing some classic rock and stuff like that. I seeing that kind of thing like all put together and seeing how many people showed up, like it was crazy how many people they had in that barn. And they're handing out water, they're trying to make sure that everybody's hydrated. And I always love those shows that are just so um they're well put together, but you can tell that there's like some, like we were saying like early on, is that DIY stuff. Like they're just like, we're gonna do this, it's gonna happen, we're gonna make it happen regardless. Like it's gonna, and I always find those ones to be like some of the most fun. Those are genuinely like the most fun times I had, playing shows. Like I said, I haven't played shows in a while, and I would love to go back and and do those sorts of things. So, um, it's playing in a barn is just cool, just in
Yeah.
general. There were some good pictures out of there that my fiance took, uh, and just I love weird venues. Weird venues are always a blast to see bands play.
Oh yeah, I remember this one time. We were on tour and we had a stop in Kansas, and I'll never forget it because the GPS literally said like, "Hey, take this exit off this highway, off this interstate," and there's nothing fucking
Mm.
there, and it's one of those exits that you get off and it's just gravel roads. And I remember like turning to our guitar player that booked the show, and I was like, dude, if we die today, like this is your fault. Because like it had us like take gravel roads to get to this person's house, and we show up, and they just have two like giant flatbed trailers put together, and that was the stage, and we played in front of like a machine shed, and like a bunch of kids came out to it, and it was like the probably like one of the funnest shows on that like little run that we did.
That's cool as hell. I love that kind of thing.
But yeah, finding those little niche spots. Like I know, obviously, like here in the Twin Cities, we have Pillar Forum that now has a venue side to it. But before they were doing that, it was literally you would watch like 50 to what seemed like 100 kids maybe pack in on the cafe side
Mm,
to just watch these bands in like this little corner to the point where like you're so far back you can't really see anything,
mm.
but like you're just there for the vibes.
You're in Minneapolis, right?
Yep.
Okay. Me and my fiance a while back, we went to see at the Chop Shop. I don't know if you've heard of the Chop Shop.
I have not.
Chop Shop, they, as long as I'm remembering the name right, um, was a basement that had like a garage kind of like into the ground. It was really weird, and it was like absolutely packed. They gave a cap for the show, and I forget, it was like 100, 200 people, and there was more than the cap. They were just like, all right, I
Jeez.
guess we're bringing. And I remember we watched our buddy's Diet Light from
Mm.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they were playing the show, and there was like they said there was a secret headliner, and I can't remember who the headliner was, but they couldn't tell people who the headliner was because there would be probably like 1,000 people trying to show up at this thing, and there's people like spilling out into the yard, and it's like it's sweaty, it's gross, but it's so it's loud. It was so cool to see that many people. And her and I watched Diet Light. We were like, okay, there's a little bit of anxiety going on. We got to get out of here.
Yeah.
But it was so cool to see that kind of like it was literally just out of a like this small basement and just spilling out into the yard, and it was stuff like that's just so fun.
I will say this about like Minneapolis. I don't know all of the house venues, but I know that there's a good like there was like a couple house venues that were like long standing, long
Mm.
time, and like when there was a show there, like they would pack out. And I think I feel like I've heard of the Chop Shop, but there's another one too that I've heard of recently. I know like it was probably maybe last year or early the year before, sometime in the past couple of years, like Enswell or Emway played one of these house shows, and I was gonna go, but I'm also like one of those people like one. me in crowds, I always feel weird, but
No,
like being like just think like I saw videos afterwards of them all like packed into this basement,
no,
and I was like, this is wild, but I don't think I could like handle being in that room with that many
no.
people. Um, but it's just like it's just crazy how many people like will come out and support these shows.
Yeah, those small like those unexpected like just crazy amounts of people in a random basement somewhere. Just it's so cool just having that kind of feeling.
Uh, do you guys have? I can't remember if we talked about the Green Bay scene the last time you guys were on, but like, how is it kind of up there? Because obviously, when we hear of this Wisconsin scene, I feel like a lot of people are kind of more fixated on like Madison and Milwaukee.
Yeah, Green Bay is rife with just so much talent. The problem becomes the venues. We had a really good venue um that was purchased by a guy. The guy did some really stupid dealings. Um and he basically ran the place into the ground. And it was really disappointing because there was like, bands like I don't know if you know many ska bands, but like Mustard Plug had played there
Yeah.
like back in the day. There was some bands that were like famous in like the punk scene that went there, and the place just like went into disarray. Luckily there's still some like, we have At the Tracks, which they've been really solid getting in a lot of good bands. There's, for smaller shows or like more intimate shows, there's a UFO Museum. They've been great. It's literally just like a pop culture, like they sell vinyls there, but they
Okay.
also like do they have like pop culture like Alf like memorabilia. They have like a weird like 90s or 80s movie playing on like a CRT. Just like it's a very cool place, and I highly recommend if you ever make it to Green Bay. Um, there's plenty of other venues that I'm actually forgetting the names of because they didn't pop up until like this past year.
Mm,
And I wasn't really following as many of like the venues that were popping up. I would always see like, oh, there's a show at the tracks, whatever. Um, but there's so much talent here, and there's a lack of venue space sometimes, and which is unfortunate because that there will be some shows that we played at the tracks usually would have, no matter who was headlining, would have almost a packed venue. Uh and then but like, so there's that want there for it. But I know a lot of venues like they do cover bands, which
mm,
no offense to cover bands, um, but it's one of those things. They're playing songs that people like when they're drunk, and when they're drunk, they want something that they can sing.
yep.
Um, they're not going to look at some random emo band that comes in. You know, uh, maybe they will. Maybe they'll find their new favorite band. And that's one of the things that I like about like the bands that are here. There's, Modern Haunting. They're like an 80s synth inspired like pop. uh I don't want to say punk, but they're like close to punk. Um there's Radio for Pets, who's a solid pop punk band made up of some really, really cool people. Um, you know, but there's all this, like I said, there's all this talent, but it's yeah, Milwaukee and Madison are like the places here in Wisconsin.
Hmm.
Guaranteed. Like if you want a show, Milwaukee, Madison probably got you covered every weekend.
Right.
But in Green Bay, it's more like, you'll have really good shows, but it's not always, the venue can't always have, let's have a show this day, this day, this day, that they don't have the ability to always have a show like every single night, or every single day of the weekend. But I always love seeing that. I'll see on like events pages and stuff like that that there's a show, and it's nice to see. And there's some new bands forming here. Some bands obviously you know said goodbye. um, but there's still a lot of talented musicians here. So
Hell yeah. I think that's yeah. It's rough, hopefully that all changes. I know like Minneapolis is obviously a little bit different where we have a fuck ton of musicians and bands going on, but we also have, I mean, a good amount of venues to the point where like it kind of sucks depending on like what's happening because you might have two or three friends playing a couple different shows, sometimes across town from each other, and
No.
it's like I kind of want to be at both shows, but like I kind of not like I gotta kind of pick and choose a little bit depending on what's convenient.
Yeah, I guess that's the one thing we have here is like if there's a show on a weekend, it's probably the one usually. And if you see the band, you're like, I want to see that band. You're gonna be able to see that band, like
Yeah,
guaranteed. So I guess we kind of have like a reverse issue where it's just like, you know, the bands that are playing here are really good and you want to see them and you can see them. It's just, sometimes the venues aren't always, there, but
right. The other downfall is as someone that is now old and has to get up in the morning for work and stuff like that. I have friends that'll play like a 9 or 10 o'clock show on like a Tuesday. I'm like, bro, like that's tough. I had to one get over there, find parking, get to your show, and then get home. Like
no,
that's tough work.
I've been feeling that too, honestly. Like I turned 32 in December, this past December, and I feel that. I feel that on an
Yeah.
emotional level.
But yeah, it's nice to hear that at least something's kicking. And like I said, hopefully it keeps growing in the Green Bay scene. It sucks that dude kind of ran that one venue into the ground, but I feel like there's like a venue back home that it's kind of starting. Like last time I was there, like I kind of like looked around and I was like, man, this place really needs to kind of get like upkeeped a little bit.
Mm,
And from what I had heard, like I knew they had bought another venue in town, and the other venue's like a lot nicer
mm,
because of the people that used to run it. So he like focuses most of his time on that one with like the country artists that are coming through or like some other shows. So like the iconic venue in town that he also owns now is like kind of just left by the wayside. So it's kind of just
mm.
it's a real bummer because like bands like Nirvana have played at that spot. I think
Mm.
Bring Me the Horizon played there and got banned from playing there, which is crazy. But to see a staple kind of just falling apart is really just brutal to watch.
Yeah, we had a place here that it was a ballroom. It's I can't remember the name offhand. But there's old archival footage of yeah, Green Day playing in Green Bay, which kind of funny now that I say that out loud. Or footage of Modest Mouse, like really early
Mm.
Modest Mouse, like playing in Green Bay. And now like we have the Epic Event Center here in Green Bay, and they bring in like a bunch of bands that people like really well known bands that people want to see. Um, but like the DIY bands, like if you ask like equipment, or if you ask like Arcadia Gray or even Mway to come here, it could be kind of hard to get them here sometimes, just because it's like we don't have like the venue space. Like if a bunch of people want to see them, like it's it's tough, but we're trying to make do.
Yeah. Um, if people in Green Bay, this is the chance, make it the new hotspot. You know, I know we bounced around a little bit,
Mhm.
which again, it always happens on the show, and there's no real structure. I don't keep it to a T, but I want to make sure that there's nothing that I might have missed between designated hitter or the overwhelming feeling that you want the people to know about.
Um, I hope people like it. I hope people like the EP. It seems like people really resonate. Anybody who's listened has been really, really kind. Um, it was a lot of fun to make, and again, it was weird for me to make. Um, but it makes me excited to keep like recording and keep doing stuff, even if it ends up just being me for a while. Like,
Yeah.
even if I can't do like full band like performances, it's still fun that I can just keep making music and stuff like that. So, um, I'm just glad to be here, and hope people are enjoying it, and hope I can get going on some more stuff soon.
Hell yeah. We'll talk links here in a little bit, but everyone make sure if you haven't already to hit that follow button on Designated Hitter. Like I said, we'll talk links in just a second. One thing, if people are listening to Designated Hitter on Spotify, that I wanted to bring up is most bands on Spotify in their bio section
Oh
talk
no.
about their band, but currently, if you go to Designated Hitter, we'll see if it's changed by the time this episode comes out. It's currently a bio on Dale Earnhardt Sr., which one, raise hell, praise Dale, all day, every
Praise.
day.
Mhm.
Uh, why is that the bio on the Spotify?
So I didn't want let's make it clear. I didn't want to leave it empty. That's the first thing.
Fair.
But because at the time I wasn't sure if it was going to be a full band. I didn't know if it was just
Mm.
going to be me. I also don't know how to talk about myself a lot.
It is
Um,
super weird to be like, this is like what I do, and this is how I explain. Like, I can't. I've tried. You know how many times I've written a bio for this
yeah.
fucking podcast, and every time, if depending on what platform you look at, it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine would literally be like designated hitter is Brandt Bailey. And it would just be that. And that would be like there's nothing I can really explain to you. Like I feel like somebody else would have to do it. Um, but the reason I chose Dale is um I started getting back into sports, and that's where the name designated hitter came from. Um uh my fiance was watching randomly one day we were just watching like compilations of baseball,
Mm.
and then we started like getting into other compilations. There was uh NASCAR compilations, there was football compilations and stuff like that. And something that really resonated with me was because I grew up watching a little bit of NASCAR with my dad when I was growing up. And Dale Earnhardt was always like this enigmatic figure of the sport. And I remember it affected me so emotionally. Like we watched, there was a documentary that released not that long ago. It was like a 4-part, 5-part documentary. But we also watched like there was another like just a video about what happened to him before he passed. And for some reason that really got me crying. And it was just one of those things. It's like, I was so young when he passed. Like I was like first grade or something like that. Um, and it was one of those things that like I've always viewed him as like an important figurehead. Like who knows where he would have been, if he had survived. Like who knows? But the way that he went out, and he went out on top, and he was such a figure that I was like, man, just something emotionally resonated. And I have a shirt of him uh uh talking about him fighting God. And that's one of my favorite shirts to wear, like that I would wear at shows when I was in the Center and the Saint and stuff like that. So I was just like, you know what, a little bit of comedy in putting him as the bio, but also like I genuinely like respect and love what came out of what he did in the world of sports. So
He like I was never one that grew up kind of watching NASCAR or any races, and I'm sure that there's a lot of people that are listening that are probably feeling the same way. But when it comes to you hear Dale Sr., everyone is like, that's the guy.
no.
Like he did something. We like obviously raise hell, praise Dale. Everyone will say it and chime in the same way. Like how he went out was very tragic, but it is kind
Mhm.
of it would be kind of interesting to see like where he would be at today. Obviously, he
Yeah.
probably have probably solid team of his own still, kind
No.
of running and doing everything. Maybe see him. Maybe we would have seen Junior follow in his dad's footsteps and become a
Mm.
podcaster because his
That's
dad would
true.
have done it first.
That's true.
Maybe
That's true.
which would be kind of wild just seeing the mustaches talk. One little, I really love the movie Cars.
Oh hell
That's
yeah.
as much as I've gotten into. I watch NASCAR sometimes when it's on, but I'm more of a Cars guy than NASCAR guy. But
Yeah.
that sounds lamer to say. But you can look up all of the Piston Cup winners, and they do have Dale listed in there, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool. Just kind of shows obviously he transcends
Yep.
generations in that
Yeah.
aspect.
He was literally like me growing up. I was a big fan of Michael Jordan,
Mm,
and Dale Senior was like the Michael Jordan of NASCAR. Like they're
oh
hands
yeah,
down. Like he was the money maker. He was the competitor. He was the intimidator. It literally he you know he was so like in his prime. And yeah, it's just one of those things that like I emotionally got invested in and kind of got some story of that, and that's how that came to be. So
well, so I haven't asked this question in a while. Um, so I'm gonna lay it out here, and I'm gonna kind of put a twist on it. If everyone remembers from the entire history of you episode where we kind of talked about what song would be in a possible Madden game. Let's say you get approached for the next NASCAR game, and they're like, "Hey, we want a designated hitter song in the game. What song would you contribute to that game?"
oh man, uh, based on vibes, I'd probably go with something off of EP2 just because like I went a little bit more like not country, but like a little bit folksy. So I'm thinking. I mean, Mini Van Helsing probably is going to be up there. It is purple might be good just because of the yelly bit like that towards the end, kind of like energy release kind of thing.
Yep.
One of those two, I think.
Okay. Solid choices. Solid
No,
choices. Um, yeah. I mean, never know. One day, we could see those happen.
I would
But
love
yeah,
that.
solid choices. I'm trying to think of what my. I had a follow up question, but then I threw out the NASCAR one, so I'm trying to think of
Oh,
what other one I might have had. Um, oh, in as you were kind of talking about, hey, you had gotten back into sports, and that's how we kind of got some of the song tracks off of the first EP. In sports itself, in the song, there is a sound clip from a certain game. What game is going on, and why did you decide to put that into sports?
so that's from the Cubs winning the World Series, um, which was one of those things that I'd been watching. Like I said, there was compilations. There was like historical like most crazy wins, blah 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 in baseball, whatever. Um, and I'm a Chicago fan, but I will preface this: I'm a White Sox fan at
Mm,
heart. I grew up loving the White Sox. I'm suffering now as a White Sox fan, um, but the Cubs winning the World Series was such a monumental, like huge thing that even me, as like not normally a Cubs fan, I was like, this is insane. Like
yeah,
this is, they broke a curse that they believed they had for so long, and uh it was such a monumental thing of like they did it. And that whole song is about um uh being unsure, not just from a sports sense, but just being unsure in general, and then like trying to overcome that sort of thing. So like the first line about like having a low batting average, playing baseball, I really did. Like when I played baseball, I was not very good at it, and then that was the worry coming into like music and stuff, like seeing all these bands doing amazing things. I was like, am I good enough for this? And having that clip of the Cubs winning the World Series was kind of like well, shit, if they could, granted they have a lot more talent, at
but
that
I
point in
know what you're
time.
saying. Yeah, yeah,
But like in my brain, I was like, well, they did it. They overcame a curse. They did, what they had to do to win. And in my brain, I was like, that song was like the first song that I kind of like workshopped for the project, aside from the song that I wrote a long time ago. But that was like the first one that I actually sat down and recorded, like
mm,
legitimately recorded. And that's why I was like, let's throw in some hype, like something hype, to kind of represent what I've, thought of myself. I was just like, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna see what I can do, and then it, you know, we'll see how how it's working out. So
Yeah. No, I love it because like even going back to you being a White Sox fan, but you know that moment with the Cubs, like it transcends whatever team you're on.
mhm.
I think we would all have the same feeling. Like, let's say like somehow the Browns were to make it a Super Bowl, I think everyone in their
Oh
right
yeah,
mind would root for them
yeah,
because it's one of those underdog stories where there's no way it would normally happen. It's like
oh,
a crazy thing,
yeah.
and it was the same with like with the Cubs. I think the Bulls run in like the '90s. Probably a
Mm,
lot of people probably hated it, but at the same time, it's like, are they about to accomplish what they're about to accomplish?
yeah.
And you got to just root for it at the end of the day.
I love an underdog story. Like
Oh yeah,
it's always cool to see, and then they pull it off, and you're just like, oh, is this real? Is this actually what's happening? And I remember when that happened, even like I didn't follow baseball as much because I was in college at the time. I was just like, when I heard about it, I was like, oh my God, they did it. And then I was watching videos of people being happy about them winning. And
hmm
in my brain, I was like, this makes me happy because these people are like have ended suffering that they've had to endure for so long. So that's that emotional like fuck yeah, we did it kind of thing. It just really like resonated with me.
yeah. Now this is a completely side question to this, and you don't have to be religious for this answer at all. But being a White Sox fan, how do you feel that the current Pope is also a White Sox fan?
It feels good. I feel like they've made a couple decisions that are pushing them in the right direction. Uh, people are talking about the Pope a lot. I was following the NFL season, and the Bears did pretty solid compared to what they did previously. Who knows how much of that is the Pope's doing? It seems like a kind of all on him sometimes, some of the miracles. But I think with the White Sox, like I want to see them succeed. It's been a while. I want to see them succeed because like I grew up watching the White Sox with my dad,
Mm.
and Paul Konerko um was one of my favorite baseball players like when I was growing up, and it that team is just I want them to win, man. It's if it's the Pope's doing, or if they finally get a player that like can bring them like their version of Shohei Ohtani, like just something, please. That would be so amazing.
Yeah, so I grew up obviously in Iowa. We didn't have Iowa doesn't have its own, major league team.
Mm,
We have all the double A affiliates or
mm.
sometimes triple A affiliates. So like, I have friends that are White Sox fans, Cubs fans, all that fun stuff. I so anytime a band from not band, sorry. Beers and bands, but we're talking about
Yeah,
sports.
yeah, yeah.
Anytime like a sports team kind of can excel in like this Midwest area, like it's always great to see because honestly, seeing the Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers every fucking time, even
Uh,
this year's Super Bowl, Patriots, Seahawks, we've seen that before.
yeah,
It's
we've
been
seen that
done.
before.
Give us the new script. Put
Yeah.
in some underdog teams that are gonna sweep it all and just have a good time with it.
I'm calling it. Jets are going to be in the Super Bowl this next season. I'm calling it right now. The Jets are going to win. I'm not going to put money down on it, but the Jets, the Jets are gonna do something this next season.
Have you seen this whole thing where people have already looked at the logo for next year's Super Bowl and looked at the colors and try to match the teams?
Hmm.
And I can't remember what teams are like the two prominent ones to be supposedly in the Super Bowl,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
I I have.
just
I've seen that because for a couple of Super Bowls they got it right. I don't know if I believe in that one as much
yeah,
as like some of the other scripting related stuff that they're like, maybe the refs are doing a little something, allegedly. But the logo one I have seen, and that one seems like we're reaching a little bit for that one, but
yeah, man. We'll see.
yeah.
We'll mark our words, don't mark our words. Super
Yeah.
Bowl, I think 41 or 42 next year. This
Yeah.
is 40, I think.
Yep.
We'll see. We'll see who makes it on top, or who makes it there in general.
No.
Um, but uh, but dude, Brant, this has been a great time
Hell
getting
yeah.
to catch up
Hell yeah.
and talk about everything. If anyone's looking for merch, music, or designated hitter in general, where can they find it?
You can find all the music on whatever platform you prefer. If you want lyrics and you want a little bit behind the scenes content, which is going to be coming out very soon. I don't know in comparison to when this comes out. That'll be all on Bandcamp. If you want like the special stuff. Um, Otherwise, yeah, I'll be here in Wisconsin. Maybe I'll be able to make it to a show in like Milwaukee or whatever. But hopefully gonna start playing and yeah, just have a listen.
Oh yeah, I know you had tapes at one point for Smile Through It All. Do you
Mhm.
still have tapes? If anyone's looking,
I'd have to check. I'd have to check. Last time I checked, they still did, and that was pretty recently. So by the time this comes out, check with oh my goodness, why am I forgetting? Oh, Sheer Force Records. Wow, my brain just like blanked. Sheer Force Records. They did a phenomenal job doing the tape for Smile Through It All. Gonna see about physical versions of this most recent EP at a later date, as well as some other things that are in the pipeline.
hell yeah. Well, as usual, depending on where you found this episode, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, or you watched the YouTube version and got to see Brandt's lovely face like I did today, check the hyperlinks down below. Make sure you follow Brandt/designated hitter on all the socials, and then also I should have a link down below as well for the tapes if anyone's looking for those, as to add to the collections. But yeah, Brant, one last big thank you for taking the time out of your Friday to catch up and then also talk about your new project with me.
Thank you so much. It's always a blast being on here, and it's really good talking about stuff.
Yeah, no, it's always a good time. Hopefully we'll do another one of these in the future, and then maybe one of these days I'll make my way to Green Bay and we'll get some maybe some hard eggnog in person. Who knows?
Yeah, cheese curds, hard eggnog. That's actually
I
that
mean,
sounds pretty bad.
well, cheese curds, yes, hard eggnog with the cheese curds. That's
Mm,
that's a weird combination. We'll figure it out
that's too
though.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. But everyone, make sure you listen to the overwhelming feeling that something is out there, and I'll catch everyone on the next episode. See ya.
Beers with Bears.